Hello, we're back again to talk about millennial frameworks, and today we're going to look at premillennialism. We've looked at post and we've looked at amillennialism. Now we want to look at pre. Premillennialism is the belief that Jesus will return before the millennium, because the world is getting worse and worse, and only He can straighten it out. Okay, so this is a derivative. This is different from both and post millennialism, because both of those see Jesus returning after this long period of time. But with premillennialism, Jesus returns before. That's why it's called premillennialism. And as the book of Revelation is laid out, it best fits the sequence of the writing of Revelation. Now, most folks take Revelation with varying degrees of figurative language, so it fits the way it's laid out, and that's as far as I need to say. Premillennialism comes in two basic flavors: historic premillennialism and dispensational premillennialism. Historic premillennialists believe simply that Jesus is coming back before the millennium. That's it. That's as far as historic goes. Dispensational premillennialists, or dispensationalists for short, have a much more elaborate system that codifies the order of events in the eschaton. They hold that there are 7 dispensations. So there are different understandings of premillennialism. Now, these dispensations are different frameworks within time which God deals with humanity throughout human history. The dispensation of grace is the 6th of the 7, and the dispensation of the kingdom, is the 7th dispensation. The rapture of the church is the event that transitions between dispensation 6, the dispensation of grace, and dispensation 7, the dispensation of the kingdom. Premillennialism holds to something called the rapture of the church, and that is the time when the living saints are caught up, which is Latin rapto in Latin, that's where we get the word rapture, in the air to meet Jesus, as depicted in 1 Thessalonians 4 and 1 Corinthians 15. There's considerable disagreement over when this event will occur within the premillennial camp. Within premillennialism, there are 3 different answers to this question. According to this last 7 years before Jesus' return, called the tribulation. Pre-tribulationists believe the event will occur before this tribulation, which they believe is a period of 7 years, the second half of which is when Antichrist will arise, and he will rule the world. Because they believe the church is not going to be partakers of the wrath of God, since they see the tribulation as wrathful, the church must be taken out. This position is the dispensational position. There's also a group called post-tribulationists. They believe that the rapture of the saints will coincide with the return of Christ at the end of the tribulation period. This view is held by a few dispensationalists, but not many, and most historic premillennialists. They do not see any biblical evidence of 2 second comings, one for the saints and one for the world. So post-tribulationists, because they don't see the 2 comings, go with one coming where the rapture and the second coming of Jesus occur at one point in time. Premillennialists or I get tongue-tied over these terms too. Pre-tribulationists, because they theologically reason that the church cannot endure the wrath of God, they say that there must be 2 comings, one for the church, one for the world. Now, see how hermeneutics drives this? One rejects, one yields, or one places God's the church avoiding God's wrath as a controlling hermeneutic. The other places one coming as a controlling hermeneutic. And it really is a battle over hermeneutics. That's why hermeneutics are so important in theology, and even more so in eschatology, where we have models built to describe what may occur because it hasn't already occurred. We can look back on Jesus and see his life and what he did. We can look back on creation and glean from that what we can. We can utilize the work of the New Testament and our understanding of how the Testaments go together to understand salvation in the church. We don't have so many models. But when we get into a lot of unknowns, like the future, like last things, we construct theological models. And those theological models are absolutely pivotally related to the hermeneutical assumptions we make. Because it's those hermeneutical assumptions that actually serve as the footers for the foundation of the model. And the church not enduring wrath, it is the footer of the foundation of the pre-trib model, and one coming is the footer of the foundation of the post-trib model. And so again, it all comes back to hermeneutics. It all comes back to the proper interpretation of Scripture. And proper, I use that in quotation marks because each side believes that they possess the proper interpretation. And I want you to hear it from me now and up front. Hermeneutics is the engine that drives the train. And once you make your hermeneutical commitments, your models will necessarily follow. But it's those hermeneutical commitments that are so key, but they're the things that we rarely talk about. Those interpretational assumptions that we make, assigning priority to one text over another, allowing one to control another. We never say those things out loud, but they are the real reasons why there are disagreements within the church. So in your own work of doing theology, what you need to be so aware of are your controlling assumptions. Which texts do you see as the lens through which you see the others? You do it. I guarantee you do it. I do it. But the key to being a good theologian is the awareness that we are doing it, and to be able to critically self-reflect on our methodology and our practice. If we can do those things, then we can become good theologians. If we cannot, then we will just spout off our doctrine without any sort of critical self-reflection. And that's why in the last few years, dispensationalism has begun to reinvent itself. Because it has finally thrown off the shackles of self-convinced fundamentalism and began to critically evaluate what it is doing. And that's why it is beginning to modify some of its stances. Because some of these decisions just really do seem arbitrary. But when they were combined with the self-cocksuredness of fundamentalism, it seemed pretty impenetrable, at least at the time period. Now, there's a third alternative. After that little discourse, there's a third alternative for millennial views, and that is mid-tribulationism. And mid-tribulationism believes that the rapture will occur at the middle of the 7-year period, because, again, there's that division between the first 3.5 years of that 7 years and the second 3.5 where the wrath occurs. Again, mid-tribulationism is that view that is driven by the wrath of God not coming upon Christians. Tries to be the best of both worlds, but still makes the hermeneutical commitments of pre-tribulationism. Now, let me give you my evaluation of this. I don't think there's enough biblical evidence to make a decision. I think all sides have points. All sides have problems. At least in the partial revelation that we have. God has not told us every ounce of future events. He's left some things without telling us. And it's in those things that he hasn't told us that will clear all this up. And so, my view of this is that we just don't have enough information to know one of them for sure. I lean personally toward post-tribulationism. To me, I don't see the church and God's wrath being a problem. God can pour out his wrath on the world and leave the church unaffected. He surely was able to do that in Egypt when the plagues were on the Egyptians but not on the Israelites. I don't see that the wrath being poured out on the whole world necessarily means that the church cannot be physically present. And because I don't have that hermeneutical commitment, I am not absolutely committed to pre-tribulationism. I lean more toward post because I don't see the evidence of two comings. But, I could be wrong, and I'm fully aware of it. I just lean more in that direction, and that's why. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But again, I just want to keep drawing your attention and keep pulling you back to the idea of hermeneutics. Interpretation, assumptions, control. Those are the most important ideas in theological method. We talked about those way back at the beginning. And probably at the time it didn't seem all that important. But now that you get to the end and you're in the middle of eschatology, then you really have reason to understand why hermeneutics are so important and why the methodology we use to interpret is so important. Well, that's it for this time. We'll be back again to talk about some dispensational hermeneutics themselves so that we can get a better view of what we're talking about. Have a great day. Bye.